Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Iowa soccer supporters. I'm Ben Brackett, your Soccer Talk co-host, sitting with my good buddy Blake Sievers and the Titan Tactician. Siebes, how are you today?
Good morning. Good to be back in the lair.
Yeah, Titan Tactician Matt Saheg, how you doing?
I'm good.
Great. Thanks for being here, everybody. It has been a while. We haven't been together in a couple months to do the pod, and we were itching to get back out on the field, weren't we, Siebes?
We were. We did the weather report, and it was it wasn't the best one. A little rusty.
No, it took a couple takes, didn't it? Well, I haven't posted those yet, but that's because I wanted to make sure we had the pod still coming. So glad we're here. So we did a little something different, but a little the same. Went out and watched a bunch of high school players play some soccer. This time of year, they're playing for their club teams. So we watched Sporting Iowa take on the VSA Rush in ECNL. It was their first game of the season, of this new season. Sounds like they've both been training for a month or more now without any games, so they were probably chomping at the bit to get out there, and it was a beautiful night, wasn't it, Siebes?
It was gorgeous up there at the Hy-Vee Grimesplex. Is that maybe what it's called now?
The Hy-Vee Multiplex.
There you go. But under the lights, 7:30 kickoff on a Friday night.
The question is we playing on Chase Bank Field 1 or 2? Because those are now have been renamed apparently, like Chase Field. Did you know that?
I did not.
Oh, well, breaking news. It was in the paper. This
It was kind of cool, right? It kind of like you said, Ben, all the high school boys kind of brought me back a little bit to a Friday night.
Yep, and that facility's
during
great.
the spring.
I mean, I hadn't been out there, so I was kind of impressed by that. So yeah, good night to be out, and it was just kind of a great fall night. What was sort of that? Let's talk a little bit about our impetus for going out there, right, Siebes? Obviously, big game. Obviously, wanted to cover some of the high school players, but then also it was kind of a big night for both clubs because you had the visitor in town, Chris Manella from the Philadelphia Union Scouting Network. He was in town to kind of make some connections and keep tabs on some players. Matt had a long chat with him.
Yeah, I stood next to him for 20 or 30 minutes in the second half, and Justin Vorster was also there. He introduced me to him, and then so we just kind of chatted, and I was just asking him general information about his role in the Philadelphia Union and sort of their scouting strategies and stuff like that. And it was just interesting to talk to a guy who's in that role, who's actually looking at players to bring them into the professional environment, into the top league in our country.
Yep, and then Philadelphia Union in particular are known for their for promoting youth players from within their academy and for their scouting network. So I don't know, for whatever it's worth. So that was happening. So we made a point to go out, and it was fun to watch a bunch of high school players. So we've got these rosters in front of us, and it's like, I mean, there's probably 10 or so different schools represented over both teams. And you've got, everything from Bettendorf and Davenport North to DCG, Dow Center Grimes, or Adel DeSoto Minburn, and then a bunch of the CIML schools, of course. Everybody from Urbandale, Waukee, Johnston Valley, Ankeny, Centennial. We got a little, who did I see? A little Norwalk in there as well. So, did I miss anybody, Steve? Johnson?
No, it was interesting because we got the rosters with the schools, and I just going through them, right now you were kind of going through that. It's interesting that there's not one small, quote, small 1A player.
No 1A players. No 2A players either.
Because right, Norwalk and DCG are 3A.
Yeah, and then
It's interesting.
Well, and then you look at, like we've got one Roosevelt representative and one Hoover representative who isn't on our list, but who we know is on one of the rosters. So, like, again, just the smaller schools definitely aren't represented quite as much. But it's also not. I was sort of expecting VSA Rush to be a bunch of Waukee, Ankeny kids, and Sporting Iowa to be a bunch of Valley, Johnston, Urbandale kids, and certainly not that way.
Yeah, I love a little bit too. Both teams have kids from high school teammates playing against each other.
Oh, a bunch, yeah. So good atmosphere as far as feistiness goes, right? Everybody was there to play and get after it. Let's talk a little bit about the game, though. Matt, what'd you think?
Well, first of all, I had never watched a game out at the Hy-Vee Plex since it's opened. So
Yeah, same.
I thought it was super cool. what the setup reminded me of a little bit, actually it didn't remind me of it, but what I started thinking was, well, how cool would it be if they had the high school quarterfinals in that little quad of fields right there? I don't know if it would be, large enough to accommodate all the fans and then there's enough parking, but you would actually play on turf there, and then you've got 4 fields set up. You could do, all 4 games in the quarterfinal day. It'd be pretty sweet. You wouldn't have to worry about the grass or anything, and then you could just transition right over to MediaCom for those later games. So that's one of the things that I thought of right away. But yeah, it was fun to go out there, and then just since we've been following a lot of these kids now for several years, to see, and we've really only covered high school soccer, to then see them in their club environments was fun. We follow the Johnston boys a lot, and so guys like Cale Leach, who we saw get injured in the final, he was immediately recognizable. Mason McKnight at the back there. Brock with Centennial as well. Tate Duax. All these guys who we watched all spring long, then we saw them kind of intermixed in with other players, and so it was a fun game to watch just in that regard. I think the overall game was okay. It was obviously, I think, their first game of the season. But it's a Friday night game. All the guys are jacked up, ready to play against each other. You can tell they might be friends like when they're at their sort of schools together, but if there is some cross, people playing
some cross pollination.
Yeah, that when they get on the field, there's a little bit of feistiness there. I think I don't want to go straight. Actually, I do want to go straight to the end of the game. There's a great little taunting, I would call it. One of the Sporting players just was taunting like crazy, the big old boy at the back. And I think if it would have been some little wimpy kid, that someone may have started a fight, but he was like the biggest guy.
Yeah, I think that was number 34, Almin Islamovic.
Yeah,
Almin, maybe.
Right, and so he's chirping, and nobody's going to go after that guy. So it didn't turn into a brawl. It was just a good little taunt, and I enjoyed it.
What's kind of interesting, too, is some of the boys play in different positions, right? So, we talk about Brock Braza, we saw him at Centennial playing in the attacking role, and then, we're sitting next to his dad there for a little bit, and we're like, dude, where's Brock at? And he's, now all of a sudden he's like a holding midfielder.
Yep.
Just, again, different
I
different
think
players.
Eric Faust for Valley, he played more in the midfield, and he was playing the number 9. It's high up the field, playing center forward. So, yeah, totally interesting.
And how about just real quick, Ben? Remember the first foul of the game within 30 seconds in? Aliano gets absolutely destroyed, and we're like, holy cow, what have we just walked into?
Yeah,
here?
we were excited for a bit.
Yeah,
It toned down after that.
It did. It couldn't have. I don't know if it wouldn't have been good if it ramped up from that, but I liked it.
No,
I wasn't there for that. Who got?
Max Aliano just got kind of teed up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just smash. And the referee called a foul, and it was one of those where probably if it wasn't the first minute, it's a booking. But I think I don't know. It was just the ref was like, man, is this going to just get really, really ugly? But
yeah, he was good.
Started on fire.
He did well to keep on top of it. But I guess the other sort of if you're around the game and you're listening, you're talking to people, the scuttlebutt is right that VSA Rush is a very, very top team, and I guess we weren't getting we're not talking really betting odds, but the line on the game, we were expecting VSA Rush to, I think, kind of win handily, maybe by 3 or 4 goals. They've got some really strong attacking players, and I think Sporting Iowa would tell you that they lost a few players to VSA Rush. I think it was maybe a handful of guys that switched this last year to go over play for VSA Rush, which that sort of is what it is. But then to turn around and for Sporting Iowa to get which I guess we haven't said that yet, but they did win 1-0, and kind of a bit of a masterclass in defending, and scored the 1 goal kind of against the run of the play, but great goal. And
Totally against the run of play.
yeah, and just frustrated VSA Rush. I don't think the Sporting Iowa goalkeeper made one really nice save in the second half, but other than that, he was not tested.
Yeah, so
The 2 center backs for Sporting Iowa, that Almin, and then it was Lance Brock from Davenport North. He had a couple where I think Duax was in on goal, and he just comes sort of flying from behind, and it was super clean, and just like takes it off his foot in the 6-yard.
He's a little right back.
He was playing like right center back. But yeah.
Can we I want to talk just a little bit about kind of what you said is set up, because we already talked about a little bit of the bad blood after the game, or kind of the fun bad blood, I would call it.
Yeah, just the competitive nature of it, right? Like,
yeah, and especially when Sporting is not supposed to get the result, and then they do, and there's a little bit of chirping after the game. That's all to me. Well,
it shows that it means something too. I think sometimes we think that's the best part about high school is that it means something. It shows that this means something too.
But part of it, so I believe what I heard too, just standing over there, was that I think it's either 3 or 4 guys made the jump from
Sporting to
VSA, right? So this is the first game of the season, so they're all jacked up because of that. And if you've been around Iowa soccer long enough, and you're in the youth game, we've got these sort of stringent recruiting rules, right? And so they're the rules on paper. That's what I would say. And so then, but it's every time we go around tryout time, it's always a big deal, right? You just watch like in the spring, if you're watching social media pages, it just ramps up, right? Everyone's got the program, the college development programs, the elite programs, and all that stuff. And so with all of that, everyone's marketing their programs and trying to take players, but then there's these rules that say you can't recruit, but I mean, come on, it's got to go on and stuff like that.
Well, there's no physical barrier, right? Like everything's within 30 minutes, so.
Right. But what I would say about that though is, and I've always been a person who I hate those recruiting rules. I think they actually set us back. So I love how I like it that if you are a club or a program, you've got to set your program out there, and then you've got to compete amongst the other clubs to get the best players. I think it's how it should work, especially when we get to those older age groups. These guys, especially the boys, they know exactly what teams they want to play on. They want to play on the best team. So that sort of jockeying back and forth to get the best players, I think is a really, really good thing. And then if you just kind of look at the context of what was happening there, I mean, there was a Union scout there for the purpose of seeing if they could recruit any players into Philadelphia. Now, obviously, I don't know if that even ever happened or not, but I would just question, why do we have such strict recruiting rules? If, number one, I think it happens anyway. I'm not saying these guys break the rules or anything, but I just think it happens anyway. But number two, if the whole idea is for these kids to eventually get recruited, we should be allowing this recruiting going on in between these clubs to set these kids up to play in top environments. Now, I think I get a lot of pushback from players people around the state, and say, well, it just goes too far, and where do you draw the line? Can you recruit under 11, under 12? Anyway, I like it. But
I think it's worth noting too that every time we talk about high school soccer, this same recruiting thing comes up. Sorry, I just people are complaining about it. So there's always this sort of concern about other people affecting your program.
That's right, right. And so I've always thought. I mean, I'm sure at some point I got caught up in it too, but I've always thought if you put your program out there and you mark it on what you've got, you shouldn't worry about other people's recruiting strategies, right? So you should be able to get the best players. And then, you're going to have teams go different places. But anyway, but I think that set up the night a little bit too, just in terms of the competitive nature of the match. Sporting Iowa knew that they were not as good as a team. They knew they were in the underdog too.
Sure.
Week said it at halftime, basically, right? He didn't say we're the underdog, but in terms of how he talked about how they planned to set up their team,
they had to respond to what they were going to be shown.
Yeah, exactly. He was basically saying we're gonna sit in, we're gonna counter, which is exactly what they did.
Speaking of that, how about the coaching staffs? Again, I forgot. I kind of get lost a little bit, but I just assumed, right? You'd show up and it would be
just the two or three coaches,
like a normal league game, and
it was like a state cup
who's
game.
Who's who on the sidelines, which was cool.
I think on the VSA Rush side we had Freddie Frimpong was the head coach. But then you had Tomas over there, Tomas Boltnar.
Herrera was over there. Matty Smith was over there.
Yep. Plus a few others just kind of who weren't necessarily in the mix, but were milling around, if you will. And then for Sporting Iowa, we had Cole Poppin and James Whippich.
Jamie McClellan was over there.
Well, he's on. So it's him and Weeksy are on the staff.
Still,
but then there were
massive...
there were a lot. Yep. So anyway, it's good though too, right? You've got a lot of people who played the game and have been around it a lot and trying to influence the younger generation. So I like that. Let's talk about those halftime interviews real quick, Sievers, because I think that was like it was just interesting to hear the different perspectives, right? So you said Sam Weeks was kind of talking about how they were going to go out and respond to adjustments to adjustments, Sievers? He said
adjustments.
Yeah, he thought the VSA would make some adjustments, and as a result, they would have to make some adjustments. But Freddie, on the other hand, kind of hammered Sporting Iowa and was just saying, like, hey, like, they're sitting in, like, we know we have to, basically do more with the ball. I mean, they just really struggled to get it going in the second half.
I agree. They did. I mean, like I said, they couldn't break them down. And granted, their goalkeeper, VSA's goalkeeper, did not make, I don't think, a good save. Which is
probably didn't make a consequential save.
Yeah, and then Sporting's made one really good one, and it was just kind of like I remember I get hammered for this, but as a neutral, it was just like, ugh.
Yeah, there's some good midfield play, but
yeah,
but it was a lot of midfield
attacking play. Which is, again, probably say Sporting's done really well, came with a game plan, executed it, and look, I mean, now that these games actually matter, right? ECNL, like there's standings, there's results. They got the result.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I think is, because I seem to think I remember Fred saying at halftime something about breaking lines, right? He said something to the effect of, we got to look to break lines. And I thought about that a little bit, and I was like, well, what does that mean, right? And because we've talked about this a lot. That's a new phrase.
I think we asked Brody what it meant, like when we gave him a quiz, and he had kind of a reasonable answer, actually.
He did.
Well, for an 11-year-old.
Yeah, but I mean, right? I'm not criticizing Brady, but like,
you can trust me, Matt. I'll criticize him more than anybody, so we're good.
Well, there's no doubt about that.
So I thought about that term, right, and then in the context of the game, and then I was standing next to Jim Frizzell,
the Johnson
boys coach, who was there watching a lot of his boys. Which, by the way, I think is really cool.
Yeah,
Jim doesn't have to go out there on a Friday night and support his boys, but he was out there in purple.
Yep. Same with Carlos. Even though he's with he was there like to watch his boys
with his Northwest guys.
Yep.
Exactly. So it's super cool. Those guys are coming out and showing and are invested in their kids all year round. But one of the things Jim said to me was, when they communicate to the Johnson guys, I mean, without telling exactly what he told me, how simple some of the instructions are. Almost like broken down into something like an 8-year-old would understand. And the point was not that they're insulting the boys' intelligence, but it is speaking in simple terms, like to create and paint pictures.
And to give simple, and like you have one task. It's not complicated.
Right.
It's a simple task.
So when I think about that game, then you think about how Sporting, obviously, they just sat in and they defended, right? And so if you're going to talk about breaking lines, like, I mean, what does that exactly mean in the context of that game, right? Because, I mean, those weren't really lines, right? That was a blob of players, like, sitting in. And so what you've got to try and figure out is how to suck them out and then create more space, right? And so that game was calling for more depth, meaning. I think they had the width. I'm talking about the depth, like actually in the game. So everything's played, especially in the second half, in VSA rushes, attacking third, and that's by design because Sporting drops in. So how do you suck them out, right? And so if you're going to talk about breaking a line, like to me, you've got to start talking to players about sucking players out, or actually how do you penetrate, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you manufacture chances?
Right. Breaking a line means getting the ball past someone or past a player. So I think of a lot of different scenarios in the game, and I think I've said this in the pod a lot before, but for example, when the left back gets the ball in your VSA rush and Brock Brazo is coming to get the ball, right? I think I remember a scenario distinctly in the game here where Brock comes and gets it. Left back plays maybe a 15-yard pass into Brock. Brock can't turn because there's 8 guys behind him, right? And so what ends up happening is he takes the ball out and he goes sideways. So it's like, okay, so now you're not penetrating, you're going around, right? So to me, the instruction is, if you're going to talk about breaking lines or penetrating, you've got to figure out how to go north and south, not side to side. So I think it's about, especially for VSA rush, and left back plays the ball, plays into Brock. He's got to follow his pass, because if Brock sets it, then he can break the line or penetrate into the next one, right? But what I saw was a lot of these players, you play forwards and then you stand still, and so you can't actually advance the ball up the field. Or when it goes in, like, it just gets sent back out wide, so it allows Sporting to then just sit deeper again. And you're not breaking anything down.
Well, so in that scenario you're talking about, you need additional runners, because if they do play in, that's great. When they play back out, okay. But then there needs to be some movement or some. So right, you've got
movement, or you just have to keep possession in your defensive third or your midfield third. Be patient and draw them out over time. Because I think those guys are all. All the VSA guys, they're very, very talented technically. They can keep the ball, but they're not Man City. They can't keep the ball in the attacking third in that short a space without giving the ball away or without losing patience and then taking a shot or something that doesn't materialize into a chance. And so it's more of a game of chess, right? I think if you think of a chessboard, right, when the game starts, you've got the lines of defense, right? And then you suck them out and the game opens up. That's what that game needed. And so it needed things like tempo changes, right? It was the same pace the whole game where they're going forwards. There's lots of little kind of good stuff, and it looks like kind of half chances or almost chances. But Sporting was like, yes, so what? Like, keep the ball. We're just going to sit here, and we got a massive dude at the back, number 34, who nobody's getting by. Go ahead and cross the ball in the air. VSA Rush didn't have guys that could head it or win it. There's another example I remember when they would get the ball out wide. For the VSA guys, and I think we see this often too, if you get the ball out wide and you're maybe edge of the 18-yard box, you've got to decide then, are you going to whip that ball in, like in behind the defenders and with an early cross that draws the goalkeeper out, or are you going to take a player on and then get all the way to the end line and cut it back? I think what we were seeing is VSA Rush players kind of going halfway to the 18-yard box and then crossing the ball directly to the goalkeeper.
Like a flat cross.
The goalkeeper picks it up. So the decision-making, like in the context of that game, to me is what meant VSA Rush didn't win the game. Did Sporting play nice stuff? No.
Not all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, it was very.
Right? I thought it was, like you said, masterclass in defending. I wouldn't give those guys too much credit because VSA Rush, I think, ended up making it easy on them. But if that was the instruction from Weeks coming to those guys performed.
They did their jobs.
They got an A+.
Yeah.
For the tactics.
Well, I just get, just from being a player and being a coach, and if you're trying to communicate, if you're talking about simple communication, how does an attacking team score goals? They either get around out wide and get to the end line, or get balls in behind. They go over the top, or they combine through. Right? Those are like literally only three ways. I didn't see ever an attempt to combine through. Like you said, every time we got wide, it was like flat crosses. It was the wrong decision between get to the end line or serve early, and they didn't suck anybody out enough to actually play a ball over the top. So and then what are your other options? Set pieces, right? And do we see any? I don't think we saw any really good set pieces either, did we?
There was a corner kick. Somewhat late in the game. And I was standing next to Justin, and I was standing next to Chris, and there were two VSA Rush players on the corner kick, and then so Sporting did a good job and sent two out, and so it was in the time frame of the game where they knew they needed to score, right? So they were rushing, and so you see the two players come out, and then you see VSA Rush start to take the corner. And Justin was like, no. This is like what he's saying. Just slow it down. They took the short corner, and they have given it away. And so, again, that's another moment in the game, right, where it was 2v2. So that game, they needed to slow down, change the tempo, set up with the reset, take the corner kick, and see if they could create a chance. And that didn't happen. So I think it was just decisions like that throughout the games. And everything's rushed then, right? So you need a tempo change. Sometimes slowing the game down, especially when they're sitting in, sucks players out.
Well, the thing about it, and hopefully this is how Fred and Sam are thinking about this, but like these are such good learning experiences. So like because right, they've got the film. We were talking about that earlier, right, Matt? That like because they've got this film, they can go back and say, hey, let's look at that corner kick, and they can show them, guys, you just went too fast, so you got to slow down. And so hopefully they can learn from those little, because those are all like they're very nuanced approaches to the game, right? You're not like, that's not something you don't naturally pick that up. That's something you're going to have to learn over time, and then you have to retain it.
I'm glad they've got the film because we don't.
Well, not yet.
So there's a couple. So I think we've talked a little bit. So a couple things I would just kind of
here comes
pick.
critical.
So one,
Seavers.
no. You look at the ECNL website. It has rosters and numbers. They've done a very good job of that. So then you kind of have a little idea. And the boys helped us beforehand, actually.
That definitely made a difference.
That. Yeah, it did. It helped. And then with the school, right? ECNL site, you don't get the school these kids are at, but the boys ahead of time gave us that. And again, we knew most of them, but there were some kind of outliers there.
Well,
so
we don't necessarily recognize them or their numbers, so being able to put name and number together is super helpful. Thank you, boys.
Yeah. We
What
do
else?
need to get the video uploaded quicker. I'm serious. Like, it is, yeah. Like, I know it's tough, but we talk with the high school guys, right? We hassle the high schoolers that don't do that. I think it's just fair to hassle or to ask.
That's
nicer next time.
What do you think about the game otherwise, Seavers?
I mean, it kind of, like I said, I was a neutral, right? Just
What would you like if you were Freddie?
It's
if you
trying
were
to
Freddie
draw
at halftime, what are you doing?
Well, you got to. They played the same way the whole game. It's all the little intricate, technical short here, short there.
I think that's an interesting point, though, that they didn't. There was no real, like you mentioned, the tempo. There was no real variation to it. It was just sort of like, this is how we play. This should work.
Yeah, and I think it's like even in the first half, they hadn't created much right in the first half. Again, VSA, when you got the ball, possess it in your defensive third, because I'm going to tell you, 16, 17, 18-year-old boys are not patient enough.
They will eventually chase.
They're going to start chasing.
Eventually, yeah.
And all it takes is one or two to go, and then all of a sudden 3 and 4 go, and now you have so much more space to, again, get in behind, go through.
Yeah, the one thing that I thought was interesting, it brought me back to, I think it would have been like 2014-ish, maybe 2015, but I had been coaching the West Des Moines U16 boys, and Johnson Urbandale had a really good U16 boys team, and Ozzie White was coaching the team. And then for U17 and U18, we merged the clubs, and that was like the first iteration of Sporting Iowa. And so, we were talking about, you had like Sam Steenhook, who, guys that played D1 college soccer, Sam Steenhook, Garrett Culligan, Colton Page, Ryan Walker, Ryan Meredith. Anyway, lots of good players. Elvir Ibisevic, like a lot of really good players. And if you may or may not know those names, but when they all came together and we split the group, it was super competitive for both the first team and the second team. But by U18 year, that first team, they ended up losing state cup to like a much inferior team, almost because there were so many big personalities, so many good players. You're trying to accommodate 20 guys with 11 spots. And like when you're in college, there's, that's basically what you're dealing with. But when you're at this age, in high school, you're expecting sort of to play all of every game. And so if you go from being the best player who plays all of every game to now you're competing for your spot and you're only getting 15, 20 minutes or whatever, right? Like that can be challenging. And so like, I don't know that that's the case, but I just know that's going to be a challenge for Freddie all year, is just like making everybody happy. That would be my thought, at least.
I mean,
I would guess that Weeksy's probably got the same problem.
Yeah, maybe.
Just like within the team, you got to keep all those guys happy, and they're all top players for their elite. We're looking through, and these are all high performers for their high school teams. Like,
I would just say, well, which one of you scored a goal in that game then? If you're VSA Rush,
yeah,
why do I got to keep you happy?
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying.
I'm more worried about Weeks. He just got a big result.
All right. Well, I guess that point was not that good. Anyway, so maybe
I'm just saying what I would say, Ben.
No, you
did ask our opinions.
Yeah, no, everybody's allowed. So maybe before we talk opinions anymore, let's just talk from some facts, Seavers, because this weekend was like ECNL weekend. So VSA Rush played Sporting Iowa like 7 or 8 times across the boys' side, and then I guess, yeah, just the boys side.
Yes, what are you going to start, old or young, Ben?
Well, I guess since we know the oldest boys result 1-0 to Sporting Iowa, let's just go in descending order.
All right, so the 09s.
Does that mean they're like
mostly
sophomore, juniors?
sophomores. Yeah, I think so. Sporting Iowa 5, VSA Rush 2. And then we're going to go down to the 2010s, which is probably
Freshman, sophomore.
Sporting Iowa 1, VSA 0. And then we're going to the 2011s, Sporting Iowa 3, VSA Rush 1. And then we're going to go to the 2012s, VSA Rush first win. They got 4, Sporting Iowa 1. And
so that would be like that U14 group, right? So that's Armin's team.
Correct.
Yeah. So Armin Mujdik, one of our colleagues, I guess, like peers, who, about the same age. We grew up playing together. He's the coach over there. His kids on the team. It sounds like he's pretty good. He scored the opener and the fourth goal. So, but interesting that you just rattled off 6 games.
We're not done yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's one more. 2013s that are U13s. That's easy for us, right?
Sure.
No result updated.
Oh.
So again,
Who knows? Yeah.
They've done well to put all the other ones in, but
when was that game played?
that was played right before our game on Friday night.
Oh.
So this is Sunday morning. We still have not.
Well, so
Not in
interesting. Sporting Iowa with at least like a close to sweep with VSA. VSA Rush only winning the one game. That wouldn't have been my guess, but I didn't go watch all the games, so. But it doesn't matter what I think. What else do we want to talk about today, guys?
So I just have a comment about the rosters. What I think is interesting, right, is, and I get how this works, but there's just you've got, for example, Brody Lind, right, plays at Waukee Northwest. He's on Sporting Iowa, and then same thing with Amel Osmanovic.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sam Ratcliffe. So you got 3 Waukee Northwest guys, right? And then you go over to the other VSA Rush time. You've got Tate Shendell.
And then Chris Weahy,
right? They play on the other side. So I would just be curious, what makes those guys want to play for those clubs separately, and then they play together in the spring, right? I'm wondering what the difference is for them. Is it just a bid? Maybe they got one bid for one team and not
Sure.
from the other. Do they like one of the clubs better? And because then the same thing goes with, Johnston, for example. Tegan Sieverdeen plays at Sporting Iowa.
So does Sam Daniels.
But then when you go over to the other side, you've got Mason McKnight, Marcos Pintor,
Kale Leach.
Torlo, Kale Leach, all these guys.
Max Aliano.
Yeah, they play at VSA Rush. So, the question then is, if you're a Johnston guy and you're going to play with your buddies in the spring, why don't you just play in the fall? I'm just wondering, what makes these players select these clubs? Because if I'm Carlos at Waukee Northwest, wouldn't you just love to have all the Waukee boys at VSA Rush, regardless? And then if I'm Jim Frizzell, obviously, you'd love to have all the Johnson boys maybe in one team too. I think it's interesting how that works.
Yeah, the breakdown or whatever is not unclear to an untrained eye here, right? I'm sitting here just going, this makes 0 sense to me. Right? There's no logic without knowing more. Yeah. So it would be interesting just to hear, is it the kind of thing where a lot of these guys, they started at that club and they just continued to stay there, or are there other factors that come into it? Sporting Iowa's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys from the east side of the state, which I would guess comes from that Sporting Iowa East connection. Yeah. But those are some of their at least most influential players. Javier Alvarado scored the goal. He's from Davenport North. And then we were talking about Lance Brock in the back as well. He had partnered that Almin.
Landon Quinn coming in from Davenport North too. That's a 3-hour trip, isn't it? Are they coming into training like every day of the week, you think?
I don't know.
And then
I
you
mean,
got
there's at least
Bettendorf guy,
5
too.
of
You
them
got
there,
Isaac
so
Mejia from Bettendorf.
yeah,
They now have got
like
the
a
clubs
training
have,
pod.
like, quote, regional training centers or whatever
Okay.
they call them, where they can. Now, how do they do that? I have no clue. Who are they actually training with? I don't know that either. But I don't think they're driving. My understanding is they're not driving 3 days a week, leaving. You're right, training at 6. They're not leaving school or early and then getting home at
Yeah.
10. So they're doing something on their own or with a small group of players out there.
Right, and then of course you've got for VSA Rush, it's a localized group, right? There's no players from the east side of the state in VSA Rush, whereas at Sporting you've got that. You've got a very large portion of that team who are from the east side of the state, but like you said, you've got the Sporting East piece that gives you those players. So just interesting.
Maybe the other.
Or did losing the players actually bring an opportunity for some of these kids coming in? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean that's sort of the question. I think maybe just worth noting too before we wrap it up. VSA Rush had a couple of Drake commits playing. We had Kale Orban from Edel DeSoto Minburn, and Kale Leach from Johnston, and then also Tate Duax from Centennial. He's going out to Northeastern in Boston. So those are all notable for sure, and I would say kind of early commits, right? Like the fact that some of these guys are committing to Drake, before their senior year even really had begun is awesome. And same for Tate, like getting recruited and making his decision last early summer, last spring or whatever it was. Like I think that's pretty cool. I know Blake and I don't know about you, Matt, but Blake and I we went until the last minute, weren't we?
I think times are changing a little bit too, though.
For
I think
sure.
in that
November
landscape.
of my senior year is me. Yeah.
I was like
So we were
March.
February.
Yeah,
so.
it was like February, March.
But I think if we miss somebody too,
Yeah, for sure. We just
slide
done
into
it.
the
Yeah,
DMs. We
for
just
sure.
don't know.
And the one that Kale Orban, he was playing up top, and he was like he was coming in as a sub. So that maybe just goes back to that kind of like interesting accommodating all these players, and you've got a guy that's going to Drake coming off the bench. I mean, he's quite the athlete. I'm curious to see how you give him to Pat Flynn for a little bit.
There's
See what
that small
happens.
school one that I talked about and obviously
Yep.
overlooked. But yeah,
Good job of the Drake boys again, though, getting some local guys to commit. I mean, I watched the Drake play 2 games this week, actually, and it was just good to see the local flavor. in
Yeah, and
the
they won
team.
last night. They beat Tulsa.
they had right. I mean, Landon Bench started. Jonathan Mendez started
Last night?
Yeah,
Did they?
Yeah. So and Mendez started right midweek.
By the way, Mendez, for me, is in Drake's first 11 easily.
Yeah. I think that's
I
like
saw him play wide right. I mean, he's good enough to play in central midfield for Drake 90 minutes right now. And when we
the beauty of it for him is he can play out there and let somebody else play in the middle. Like
Yeah.
he can. That's what Pat was saying. Is he's just impressed by the kid. Is like he could play kind of anywhere in that midfield front 6.
Yeah, right.
That's awesome.
Yep.
What else you got?
That's all I got.
That's all I
Siebes?
got, Ben.
All right. Well, I guess maybe what we'll leave it at is, or where we'll leave it is, let us know if there's other games we should go see this fall. We're gonna go check out some Drake games for sure. Probably get to a Grandview game potentially. So just if there's any other club games we should be seeing or any games that we're not thinking of, slide in those DMs. We do what the people want, as evidenced by where we're sitting right now. So see you next time.